Climate variability and change are already impacting the Caribbean severely. Extreme weather events cost the region approximately $33 billion from 2000 to 2009. Repeated climatic events are also hampering recovery. St. Lucia, for example, was hit by hurricanes Ivan, Dean, Thomas, and Matthew from 2004 to 2016. These events have led to significant and lasting damage. Many banana farmers, for example, have had to withdraw from the industry due to high recovery costs, combined with rising input costs, loss of confidence, and limited access to affordable finance. Climate change is projected to worsen these types of impact. Over the last decade, research funded by the Climate and Development Knowledge Network, CDKN, has provided fresh insight into the nature of climate threat to the Caribbean. Research has generated regionally downscaled climate change projections and climate change visualization tools, which can help decision makers evaluate impacts at a national and subnational level. Overall, projections show that rain is likely to fall in shorter, more intense events and that conditions will be warmer. Increased flooding, drought, water scarcity, and sea level rise will also have major implications for agriculture, tourism, and other sectors. For the region's farmers, many staple crops will become less suited for cultivation. In Belize, for example, corn yields are projected to fall by a quarter of their 2010 levels by 2030s. CDKN research identifies several adaptation options that can help farmers adapt, including crop diversification, irrigation, and microfinance. The tourism sector is also vulnerable due to climate impacts such as bleaching of coral reefs and coastal flooding. To manage such risks and identify adaptation measures that work for all stakeholders, local networks of government bodies, the private sector, and community groups have been shown to be effective. While upfront costs of some adaptation measures can be high, it is possible to identify low or no regret adaptation options that can increase resilience and deliver other benefits that can accrue to communities, the environment, or the economy. CDKN tools such as Sea Coral can help identify and appraise these options.
In Suriname, many areas are being mined for gold and for bauxite, and these areas are left desolate.
Okay, one of the things that we have identified as ICA is that many of these communities come back to us and asking what are the uses of degraded soils.
Soils in Suriname are really quite poor, and to be sustainable, practice in a sustainable way, you cannot do without organic matter. So I think it's the best way to improve the soil.
So it is very important that we understand the soil and particularly how it is degraded and what can be done to manage it.
Brokopondo is one of our 10 districts that has close to 10 to 20,000 inhabitants, which most of them work in the gold mining, then in logging or in other mining activities. And then you have a group that is farming.
What we want to do is trying to find out if when we use the compost as an amendment for the soil, and try to look if all the heavy metals are being uptaken by the plants. We started making compost. We had different ingredients. We used green grass, dry grass, water, and chicken litter.
Okay, for this project we had to make compost. We had a recipe. These are the amounts of the compost. We had 400 kilogram of green matter, 400 kilogram of straw, 200 kilogram of chicken litter, and 200 liter water. Daily we have measured the temperature with this meter, and the moisture. We have a curve. That's the temperature was increasing, and then when it is constant, so after 3 months, then we know the compost is already done.
After the compost was done, we applied it to the field in different concentration. 0, that is your control. You have 10% of your compost that we applied in the soil. Later on, you have 15, 20, 25. And we have 4 repetitions of each concentration. And the species that we planted in the field are the species Cassia and Cyperus. The reason why we chose these 2 species, because these 2 species are growing in the region.
So the farmer, at his disposal, he can use his organic matter that he will have from his grass cuttings, his dry matter, and his chicken manure available right in his community. And he can start up his own composting process and apply his organic matter to degraded soils to improve the condition of the soil.
Nou ja, midde toch wel zo tevreden. Omdat tem luku fa esan uprani. En dan je ziet dat een deel zo op chin, dus op chin hok drape, jaso drape den dat nog kon zo boem. Maar je ziet dat de trouwen de mij kon. En dan, ja, ik vind dat een project kan slagen, ja. Ja, kan slagen. Midde tevreden.
We need to understand soil health almost like human health. What we put in the body, the quality of the organic matter as well as the quantity of organic matter is very important, as well as what is taken up and what is discarded. So therefore, any organic matter in any stage is not necessarily the solution. There's a need to know about the organic matter so that it is specific to what needs to be done.
Sandena tapa bakasanti ete efa kwek de vrij, dan ik kan kiezen toestemmen dat ik kan pran gronjan, dus saba en groente, waardoor ieder zeker dat no kwek no dena a bodem dat moro. Dus mami vind ik echt belangrijk en voor een project die en mocht het zijn dat ama slaag en dan we can do trasango doro lefa a plene bende.
What can be done? It is a very long process when you're thinking about the rehabilitation, when you're thinking about bringing the soil back in the initial stages it was in before the mining activities or logging activities started. But we have to start somewhere and leave something for the generation to come.
When at the beach, if you see the water receding, don't wait, run.
Sensing a tsunami? Feel. Do you feel the ground shaking severely? Severe earthquakes may cause tsunamis. Run to high ground if you feel the severe shaking. See. Do you see an abnormal withdrawal of water? As a tsunami approaches land, the ocean may pull back a long way from the shore, exposing the ocean floor, reefs, and fish. Run to high ground if you see the sea withdraw.
In the event of a tsunami or an earthquake, do you know what to do? This message was brought to you by the Department of Disaster Management and Emergencies.
are a small island developing state. Trinidad and Tobago is very diverse. Trinidad and Tobago is really a multicultural microcosm of what exists in the world, but the cultures have mixed to a really special blend. When you look at a world map, you see the name Trinidad and Tobago, you hardly see the country. So that tells you one time that we are rather, small.
The question now is not really whether climate change is real or not, or whether it's human-induced or not. The fact of the matter is the data is overwhelming. Temperature is increasing and there are implications for precipitation and the intensity of storms. So the real question is, what do we do? How do we adapt? IPCC has just completed its fifth assessment report, and with regard to the Caribbean, it's expected that there will be a general tendency to drying out towards the year 2100. There are implications for the region, of course, with regard to agriculture, the water scarcity, and things that then we need to factor into adaptation. So we have a list of adaptation measures that have been prioritized based on cost-benefit analysis that's been done by some top economists. That helps the government then in their decision-making. We as scientists are not prescriptive. We do not tell governments what to do. All we do is present options.
The methodology associated with this is a methodology that other countries can apply. Other countries, particularly within the region, need to be able to determine what are the costs associated with adaptation, because they will have to allocate resources to adapting to the impacts of climate change.
Petrotrin was pleased to be part of that project because it actually took the earlier vulnerability assessment studies that were done by the specialists and put the economic analysis on those studies to give us a cost-benefit ratio as to which ones are more useful, whether it is shoreline stabilization, whether it is mangrove rehabilitation, whether it is actually building dikes and so forth, retention ponds. It gives us an idea of each one of the recommendations and the cost-benefit ratio to Petrotrin so we can better justify it for implementation.
We have been working on the diversification of the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. And this is in our efforts to move away from the dependence on oil and gas. I think the findings of the study will certainly assist us in planning for the future and ensuring that our projects are as cost-effective as possible.
Policy is critical, and we really need to have good policies and be able to implement those policies. Make policies that are based on good science, good understanding, good learning.
I've kind of accepted my fate in a way of being sort of the guy that's alarmed about this before everybody else is.
One slice of New York cheesecake.
Why is it in so many of the sci-fi movies,
Breakfast of Champions,
food of the future comes out of a gadget?
Hydrate level 4, please.
But if you really want to understand the future of food, it's probably not gadgets you should be paying attention to. People who make raising food their business say the biggest challenges coming involve how food is grown.
We're kind of a throwback to a different era.
This South Dakota farm looks old school, but the Ortman family has designed it around their vision for the future.
Better to embrace change on your own terms than wait until it embraces you by force.
Several years ago, the Ortmans began rebuilding their operation from the dirt up, after realizing that they were barely breaking even, focusing on a conventional crop of mainly corn.
Amen. My conclusion after pushing the numbers on this was that going organic was going to work better economically because of the organic price premiums.
I was still gathering eggs from her.
This wasn't rooted in some kind of dream or wish or some philosophy. It really did start with economics.
Switching from conventional farming to organic was a huge change. Instead of plowing and spraying to kill weeds, the Ortmans make multiple trips through fields to carefully scrape them out. Instead of fertilizing with chemicals, they spend months preparing one of the oldest tools in agriculture.
Our operation is really built around compost. We're talking about manure here.
For these farmers, all that effort is worth it. Because for them, the future of food has a lot to do with the future of dirt.
If you boil down food production into its most basic form, everything that we eat comes off of the soil originally. And the soil is a living organism.
We tend to take the soil for granted. That's the ultimate source of most of our food.
History holds lessons for societies that fail to keep soil in mind.
If you look at the history of the spread of Western civilization, it's in many regards a story of people moving on after degrading the land. Individual droughts or political events or war with the neighbors, those kind of events are the kind of things that will actually sort of take down civilizations. But the table is set, if you will, by the state of the land.
One of the reasons this is so important? Climate change.
Farmers will feel the impacts in their fields long before we feel the impacts in the grocery stores.
The trends are all towards extremes. Rain doesn't come gradually throughout the year anymore. It comes in fewer but larger doses that the land is just not able to soak up.
Will says he's found that minimally tilled land enriched with organic material like compost tends to soak up more rain and stay moist through dry spells. Other growers have found still more dramatic solutions. This indoor vegetable farm in New Jersey has eliminated dirt entirely and recreated climate from scratch.
We grow in warehouses without sun or soil, independent of the seasons, independent of the weather, and this is how we can take back what's becoming more and more challenging with climate change.
Another vulnerability could be the conventional farming model practiced across the United States. It tends to favor large operations that specialize in just a few crops or animals.
This monoculture agriculture, which we tend to have had, is so vulnerable
to weather changes and climate and pests. You know, if a disease were to wipe out the wheat crop worldwide, it would have potentially devastating, catastrophic impacts globally, everywhere. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow. I'm just saying that a good farmer has got to be a good risk manager.
The Ortmans manage their risk by spreading it out. They grow a variety of crops like corn, rye, black beans, soy, and strawberries. And they also raise cattle and chickens that lay eggs.
It's exactly like a stock portfolio. Not very many people have all of their holdings in one stock.
Small organic farms may be one part of the solution to the challenges the future holds. But in a world whose population is heading north of 9 billion people, it's probably not the only solution. That's because the human race will consume more food in the next 50 years than it has in the past 10,000 years combined.
It's a complicated problem, but it is a problem that the human race can deal with. We're going to need everything from traditional agriculture to exotic agriculture, everything from industrial agriculture to locally scaled agriculture. And we've got to remember that overlying it all is the consumer. And the consumer is king and queen. And they ultimately will decide what they're going to eat and therefore what the future of agriculture is going to look like.
Feeding the future will require us to grow a lot more food. But it'll probably also require us to waste a lot less.
We throw away about 35% of all food that we produce. That's both here in the United States and elsewhere. That is low-hanging fruit. That is almost enough if we could figure out a way to deal with that problem, to feed people over the next couple of decades.
So in our little corner of the world, we're doing what we can to enrich our soil, to diversify. I hope people can see that the land is responding to what we're doing. I hope people can see that we're not starving, that we're doing okay financially, knock on wood.
And the Ortmans believe their operation could hold affordable lessons for improving resiliency in the developing world countries where farms are small and populations are large.
It's not going to be a gadget that'll do it. There's a constant exchange of ideas and of experiences. I don't want my kids to say, there were all these warning signs when I was a kid, and my dad just looked the other way, and now look at what we have to deal with.
This is the ark we're building before the rain.
Hi, I'm RPB, 9-time Calypso Monarch of Barbados. The beach can be fun, but we have to be tsunami smart. Know the signs. You're at the beach, you feel a strong shaking, run. See the water withdraw an unusual distance from the shore, run. Hear a strange roar from the sea, run. If you experience any of these signs, just run to higher ground. Just run, just run, just run.
Be tsunami smart. Know the natural warning signs. It could save your life. There may not be enough time for an official tsunami warning.
Boaters, be prepared for hurricane season. Don't wait until a hurricane warning to secure your boat. By the time a hurricane warning is issued, it's too late to be working on a dock safely.
Look, there goes his boat.
Listen to weather forecasts and plan ahead. Haul out your boat or add additional lines during a hurricane or tropical storm watch, which is issued before a warning 48 hours before the anticipated onset of storm winds. This message has been brought to you by the NOAA National Weather Service and the National Safe Boating Council.
There's something I need to tell you. This relationship isn't working. It isn't good for me. I'm breaking up with you.
It's not me, it's you. I became dependent on you. And you were always there for me, even when I was at my worst. But I didn't realize the damage you were doing. You created a toxic environment. Not just for me, but others too. You were suffocating me. We're just no longer compatible. Also, there's one more thing. I met someone else. I'm respected in public. I'm making friends. I feel like I can breathe again. That's how I deserve to be treated.
我们书店结束了。
तुम फिर से कभी नहीं मुझे दुख दोगे।
Ni siquiera te necesito.
Parce que j'ai une autre option.
And it's a healthy relationship.